All right, here we go.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks. So welcome to today's meeting. We got quorum here. We got all chains represented, which is great. So from that perspective, since we know that Jesse needs to leave early, I would propose we directly move into the discussion / voting on the two RFPs that we that are prepared. So Jeff, maybe you want to outline the content of those and where we stand.
Well, sure. Let's start with the faster finality RFP. That was sent out over the Telegram channel earlier, and I did see a number of reactions, but I think that's all I need to say. There's not been updates to it. It was ready for your review this week. And are there any last minute comments, concerns? Nobody contacted me during the week with comments, concerns. So hopefully everything looks good in there.
Just to confirm, in case for the viewers and for everybody on the call, the vote that we would be taking would be to is approving of the RFP in its current format. So it's not approving of who wins the bid. It's just putting the RFP out for public tender.
Where was it posted to read it? In the Scalability Plus group? I don't see it.
So it was there. It was also posted to the coalition group. And then it should be in the root Google folder that I think most people have access to as well.
Thank you.
The RFPs.
So can we assume that everybody or the voting representatives have all read and cross-read the RFP documents? So I see nodding from EOS. Guillaume,
yes.
Lucas, have you been able to read through both documents?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Jesse, have you had a chance to read through both documents?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
I guess the one piece of feedback I didn't share, and I don't think it's a deal breaker, is it looked like there was a couple places where it said ENF instead of EOSIO plus coalition. That was the only.
Well, let's fix those. We can fix
question,
those.
And I don't know if maybe that because of the need of an entity to engage, maybe it should say ENF versus EOSIO plus.
Do you recall where? Because it should say both. I believe the first paragraph says the ENF is laying this out on behalf of the EOSIO Coalition, but then it should say throughout EOSIO Coalition, other than where, because the funds we decided are, I guess, on EOS right now, and the ENF would be the contracting agent, other where ENF is the actual right person that will be essentially dealing with the contracting part. But there may be instances where that has not been captured.
Under approach, it says, describe your approach to post-implementation support and transferring approach knowledge to the ENF staff. That's an example.
I think it did make sense there under 2.0 or 2.1, the foundation overview, I guess.
So the intent is not to have this DNF. The intent is that this is the coalition. So if we need to reword, then we should.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be picky. I know, understand, and I look forward to new branding and a formal entity that just is itself, right? 2.1, I guess, was the thing. Everything else looked, it made sense when I got to 2.1. I was like, is that
in faster finality in SDKs or in both?
It's in both.
Because that's part of.
I would say that from my point of view, anyways, that's accurate because we will be contracting, and the ENF is the one, I guess, the entity currently that will be engaging in the contract, seeing as the coalition.
So this is explaining who the entity is that you would contract with, and is giving an overview.
Yeah.
Okay, and it does say EOSIO plus coalition in the question section below, so it's pretty clear. Okay, that was my only thing, just to make sure that this is how we want it. Which,
If you're okay with that, I mean, that is the.
No, it's fine with me. I just wanted to make sure like it wasn't an oversight when like modifying this from ENF to EOSIO plus, that we didn't miss an area that we should. But if we feel this is something that should look like it does, then let's keep it. It's good to me.
Yeah. Okay. So that's fine then. One comment I have, and I discussed that with Jeff during our weekly call, is that we do have like a very different approach to the actual project scoping, which is kind of understandable because we know that the wallet SDK document is basically written by Aaron and is going to be realized by Aaron. So and his team. So from that perspective, it doesn't need to be more specified and more detailed, specified to more detail, because we assume that the team that has written all this and will develop all this most likely does not need to kind of more specify this information. And the assumption is that we would hand this package to GrahamS anyway. So if we look at the faster finality one, which is far more detailed, to an extent, kind of the requirements though are too complex. So I think for the forthcoming RFPs, we will most likely look at those from a different angle and try to kind of split the requirements if they get too complex and have them written out in the document in a little different way to kind of match the clarity of the requirements. And what we also discussed is if we would give like an amendment to the RFP, which is a part of the blue paper that does not include the actual cost indications that have been done there, to not distract the free calculation of the partners that we might wanna pitch this one to. So not sure if there are any comments. Jeff, you wanna kind of add something to this?
Well, I think both of your points were very valid. And I think as we iterate through the next one and the next one, as a coalition, we will get better at figuring out what the right level of detail for testable requirements are. Because I think you're correct. We have two extremes here, or close to extremes, two different approaches, but I think it's okay for both of these, as we've discussed and others have discussed. So the next proposal will come up. We will work harder to come up with more of the middle ground, more specific, but not lumping a number of requirements into a single line item.
Yes. Okay. So these were just two comments from our side to these. So then I would move over to the actual voting for
one
unless
comment.
Ted.
This is minor, but I'm assuming at some point we may get some RFP responses from other countries, and the address is kind of assuming United States, says city, state, postal code. We could add a box, and there's enough room on the page for country, but it's almost like city, state / province postal code or something. Where it's a little more global aspect of what addresses look like, because nowhere does it ask for their country. I don't know if that matters to people. Dealing the fact that the ENF is in Canada, I'm kind of used to dealing with countries now.
Yeah, I think we could probably use, there must be an international, I shouldn't say standard, but it's something we can find, just copy paste from somewhere as to how we gather information like that. That's a good point to bring up.
Yeah, may I ask where in the document so I can see the reference?
Yeah, it's on, the pages aren't numbered either. It's basically on Exhibit A, Certificate of Authority.
Got it. Because we call out country in Exhibit B, so that's something we should update. Got it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, there must be some standard somewhere that talks about international addresses that everyone that reads it kind of gets okay, because addresses look so unusual in some countries, for at least for people in the US. It's like even the address of the ENF is odd to me because I'm not sure what's the street number and what's the apartment number. It's just a whole bunch of numbers on a line.
Yeah. Okay. So then, is there any going forward for the voting for the Wallet SDK RFP document? So, asking for the votes of every chain. EOS, Yves, do you agree with the document and would like to move forward?
I do, yes.
Okay, Guillaume.
Yes.
Lucas.
That's a yes from Wax.
Jesse.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. So that means that the document is approved and can therefore be forwarded to Aaron. Well, he does have it, but we give Aaron the information that he can now start. Please start with actually creating the proposals and submit those proposals. My assumption is that we will not have many questions from his side in the approval process or in the bidding process. So that's the clear assumption. So there is a timeline attached to the document, which we also discussed in our weekly call. And we assume that for the SDKs, this timeline will be faster than 1st of July until we have like a final offer and can bring the offer up for a vote. So
and I actually was just about to ask that. I was going to say, and I don't know if Faster Finality is going to have a bunch of, candidates jumping at it either. I know we have some really qualified people that are planning to apply, right? So I was just going to suggest that if possible, and it seems like there's not other, if we pass the application period and we only have one applicant and we're confident in them being selected, that we could shorten that. Because July 1st, I'd love to see Faster Finality at least get the ball rolling before July 1st, and same with the Wallet SDK. So
likewise.
I think as a group, we should see the timeline that is to maintain equity and fairness if multiple groups are bidding, but it doesn't mean we need to check our brains at the door. And if if it looks like, oh, Aaron's got this, he's going to run with it, we can get a bid faster, we as a group should understand that if nobody else is being harmed by it, then we can choose to move the whole timeline as fast as possible.
Okay, awesome. And thank you. I think that concludes the votes. I do have to get going for this doctor's appointment, but if there's another vote besides this,
one more vote.
I'll talk to Kersten, but I think we're good.
Faster Finality vote coming up.
Yeah, so I'll speed it up.
That was the wallet. Okay.
So for Faster Finality, I'm getting to the votes now. So I start with you, Jesse. Do we have approval from TELOS for the RFP document for Faster Finality?
Yes, that's approved.
Okay.
And thank you.
And Guillaume?
Yes, approved.
Lucas?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Yves?
4 yeses. Come on down. You're going to Hollywood.
Excellent. Okay. So for this one, we do know that Guillaume, you wanted to raise the bid for this. General question, from my understanding, do we plan to give this out for additional tender, or do we assume that Guillaume and his team will be the only ones to offer for this document?
I would, I guess my position is that it goes out to open tender because it was not part of the blue paper. So there's no commitment made to anybody prior to this going out. The likelihood, though, is that nobody will bid. And so if that is the case, then we can fast track afterwards. I do believe if we go back to the dates that the intent of bidding is somewhat of a short period. So we may see in the intent of bidding that there are very few people that actually intend on bidding. And I think that that's 1 week from now. So by next Thursday, or sorry, I guess the Monday afterwards, we would know whether or not anybody else is intending on bidding, and we could go from there.
Yeah.
But in the background, we know that UX is likely preparing their bid. I mean, they participated in the creation of the RFP, and it's been public now for weeks. But this at least would give time for the greater ecosystem that aren't necessarily following along as closely to raise their hands.
One point of information that tomorrow, Zack, Brandon, and I are meeting, and we are going to evaluate and document a public RFP release process, including identifying all of the places it is going to go. I mean, again, I think, you know, Zack and Brandon have a lot of this stuff in their head already, or maybe even written down, but we'll make sure we formalize that and make sure everybody is aware of what we're doing. And then we can also get input from the other chains on that process as well.
Yeah. Since Guillaume has been working on this and moving that forward with the team, also obviously with Lucas and the others, the question is, do we want to decide as a group to not put it on open tender, or do we still want to do that? I mean, the likelihood is pretty high that nobody will bring up a tender or an offer for this. So the question is, do we still want to move on with that? Or do we
I
want to
personally
take the
would like to
decision?
put it up to open tender.
Okay.
Recognizing that it's unlikely that somebody else can match the bid that's going to be presented. But I think that respecting that process, that would be my position.
What is your position on that, Lucas?
I don't mind putting it out there, just for the sake of having a consistent process. But I honestly think that people with the skill set to actually address these are all in the meetings, not external. So
I don't believe we will lose time by doing that, because Guillaume, you'll be putting your proposal together. I mean, you might have already even started that, but I can't imagine you having something solid and locked up within 5 days. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. So when the open intention to bid closes a week later and we find you're the only one standing, what we've done is we've communicated to the world that, hey, we're giving out money if you're interested, maybe not on this one, but then you immediately say, okay, here's my bid. And then we can discuss as a group of, all right, let's pull the timeline in. Let's get this done as fast as possible.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, fine. I just wanted to raise that question to be
That's good.
Be formal. Okay, doke. Awesome. That's great. Though. So we have those two things on. So we have the timing for those. This is great. So Jeff was kind enough to adjust the actual status report for all the blue papers. So Jeff, maybe you want to guide us through that?
Sure. Okay, so what we have in the first column, well, each row is the general programs. So for example, the top one is the wallet. We've got 3 projects. One, request of permission, hasn't started, whereas application registry, the work group, is reviewing it now and approving it to see if that can then come to this group the following week. And then the SDKs, you just saw Kersten move that from the review. You guys voted. Now we will officially put that in the bidding process. The other open one on the RFP write-up for the API, we're kind of discussing the API research and standards. There's still a lot of going back and forth, so it'll be a bit, I think, before the work group review, but we're trying to move that forward. I can't see what else is on the board. I already talked about the scalability and Audit Plus. We've got the automated security auditing tool in requirements right now. But I think anybody can either go see this, or if you are also looking at the spreadsheet with the blue paper voting, this same information is on there, but in a different format, like spreadsheet format.
Yeah, I just gotta stop sharing my screen because my Mac seems to do strange things. Hold on.
I don't know, Jeff, if you want to also to move IBC to requirements, because we started that today, and I think probably within the next few days I'll have cases starting work.
That's true. The board was accurate as of yesterday afternoon, but good news is we've moved another one forward. So yes, the trustless cross-chain IBC, as Guillaume just mentioned, we've got a good framework for that. The scalability meeting on Tuesday, we'll be going over that and fleshing it out in even more detail so that we can plug that into the RFP. I'd put that in requirements, actually, the first one. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. Excellent. So, yeah. Okay, and for the others, I think the status is clear so far, unless we have any more movements here. No. Okay, very good. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, then we did discuss something in regard, hold on, this amend new board for next meeting. We've done this. Let me just move this into them. There we are. We did discuss like a testing and acceptance strategy. And my proposal to Jeff at that point was that we could think about like a process of how we would assure that what is delivered by the teams that that win the bids and start working on the projects, how we actually accept and test what they deliver. And the idea I raised is because obviously they're gonna deploy somewhere on Jungle or testnet, and somebody needs to kind of test if that really works out and if it is exactly what we expected them to deliver. And the idea I had was we could kind of give each chain, the BPs, the opportunity to kind of apply for the testing, and have those 3 BPs then incentivized by the coalition for their work they're doing to test, approve, and probably raise or give us some more feedback and probably improvement proposals. So we have thoroughly tested all what is delivered. So I wanted to bring this up for discussion and for your thoughts.
I like that idea. I like having somebody be kind of a bug bounty in a way, but a formalized testing framework that could, I guess my one concern is that it doesn't overburden the process, but I like the general idea of being able to, each time that we have something new, people are able to raise their hand, get compensated in order to really deep dive into the code, test it out in the live environment. I really like that. I think that's really good. If we can figure out a way to do it, that it doesn't bog down, slow down the process, and that it is continuously a reiterative process and people can participate, that'd be awesome. I'd definitely support that.
Yeah. What do you think, Lucas? Or
that makes sense to me.
Great, Guillaume.
Yeah, makes sense to me as well. Do we want 3 BPs per chain that would be different BPs, or do we want 3 BPs that are on all chains? Or
we haven't really discussed that. So obviously we have various BPs that are on various chains, so that it would actually make sense to have some of those. But I would leave this open and say, well, we haven't further discussed that. So we could say 3 BPs in total, and it would be great if they cover more than one chain each. But we haven't discussed that. So this is something that we can bring up for the concept when we're working on that.
Yeah, and also point out that I think we're putting together a guideline, but each project we'd have to like make sense, because some projects will be much bigger and more critical in nature. So we probably want more testing and encourage that. Some are going to be really lightweight, and the idea of like paying potentially 12 BPs to go in and test like some small thing, if we did 3 per chain, that might be overkill. So again, just think of it as a guideline that as we're running these projects, we've got something at the end and everybody sort of agrees, all right, we'll pull this level off the shelf for testing.
It also brings up an interesting question, whether or not we utilize the same test net, or do we hop between test nets for different components. So historically, EOS, the chain, has really been the guinea pig for any new code for multiple reasons. One is that it was the one that I think at the onset anyways, had more access to block one in terms of once code was being deployed, back and forth would occur with block one to put out patches, etc., until the code was stable. And then it would typically, as far as I can recall, historically also always be the mainnet that would deploy the first version of the EOS mainnet, being the first of all the chains to deploy the latest iteration of the code onto mainnet. It would be the guinea pig as well, I guess, because more liquidity was there. And so if there were people to try and attack one of them, then it was kind of an obvious target. Do we want to continue? That was never formal. This process was never formalized. Do we want to always pick the same test net where we would be deploying, or do we want to alternate between test nets? Or I don't have an answer for that.
I vote yes for that. I vote yes for that. I think having a standardized test net, deploying first to EOS mainnet, and then 4 of our chains essentially following that process, where we would then test the same thing on our test nets and then deploy, right? I think that worked well in the past. I don't see why we would change that. I mean, it prolongs the timeline, I guess, but it is making it a little bit more safe, because any sort of security audits or vulnerabilities could be first found on the first mainnet deployment, and then we can learn from that, do any sort of patches that need to be done, and then follow through.
I would say that from end to end, the process would probably be faster than what we've seen. What I mean by that is after the code is out, after then the code is tested and deployed on a mainnet, the time in between, historically anyways, the time in between EOS mainnet deployment and other mainnet deployments has been rather large depending on the chain. I would imagine that now that we're working all together and we're really going at this all together, the end to end might be much shorter than it has been historically.
Agreed.
Yeah, currently TELOS got most of the Mendel changes on testnet already, waiting for EOS to finish everything and approve. So this time we're a little faster. But in general, I followed the proposal of Lucas to use EOS Jungle, get everything resolved, and then move to the other testnets from there, which would basically second the idea that you mentioned, Yves.
Would we want, and this is not really on the roadmap, but would we want a coalition testnet?
That doesn't. I mean, because of different system contracts and stuff like that, that seems like it'd be difficult. Because
it could be EOS, but just a testnet that is separate that is, let's say, run and maintained by the coalition.
But would it be configured like EOS or like WAX? Or
yeah,
like
I guess it.
Because their configurations are somewhat different. Not all four are the same.
One thing that, sorry to complexify the whole thing, but once we get to the point of IBC, it may make sense to have 4 test nets, like one for each chain, and have IBC running on all of them.
Yeah, we're talking about like future, but that's where I was getting to at as well. What if we have faster finality? We've got EOSIO trustless IBC running, and we actually run the code on the 4 chains all at once, and we see how it behaves on all 4. I mean, we're nowhere near there yet, but anyways, kind of
we can cross that bridge as we get there. I'm a big fan of not solving for things that are not in front of us yet.
I kind of like the dream. I like that idea.
Okay. So one question I did put in brackets here is, would we also allow non-coalition BPs to apply? I mean, that would be somebody from Ultra say, well, I'm happy to test this.
I would say yes. If they have the capacity to do so, the more the merrier. If we may be in positions where we have multiple code deployments at once and we want to have more hands on deck, why not?
Would they be testing it as a EOS or a WAX or a TELOS BP, or would they be testing it as an Ultra BP on an Ultra testnet? Do you see?
Well, no, the idea is we'd be using Jungle, right? I think is kind of where we're going.
This is only for Jungle. This is only for the first part of because I thought we were going to do Jungle and then cascade across all 4 chains. And so this part, Kersten, you're referring to is only for the initial test on Jungle.
Yes.
And so they would have to be, even if they're an Ultra BP, they would have to put a block producer on Jungle. So
the Ultra BPs are all TELOS, EOS, WAX BPs anyways, right? So a lot of the BPs are BPs everywhere.
So, I mean, as long as they're putting it on Jungle, we don't care if they're normally an Ultra, but they have to configure to the Jungle configuration though, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I would propose then, with that information, Jeff, I think we would go back and work on that proposal, if that's fine. So do you volunteer next to me?
Of course.
You've been voluntold.
So, okay, and we will ask other people to join in if we have any questions or thoughts on that. So that's great. Very nice. Okay. Yeah, then we discussed quality assurance and qualification of vendors for the RFP process. So Jeff, you want to kind of give some information to that because you already discussed that?
I'm sorry, I'm rereading the ticket and I'm trying to catch myself back up. So,
okay.
So this is the selection process.
Yes, and
yeah. So we are going to have to address this pretty soon. I don't know that I'm prepared to present something today though, because the 2 RFPs we just voted on, I know we will have at least, a week or 2, assuming we don't already know who gets selected. But I do think this is a high priority on our list, so we need something. I'll try to have something together to present maybe next week, but if not, definitely by the week after, so that we do not delay any of the actual RFP processes.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. Then we also discussed, because there are effectively, we don't have work groups anymore. So we had the discussion that we basically need a steering committee by program. So somebody that is leading the program initiatives on a technical side and have like a committee or additional resources and skills to judge on what is being delivered. So if we're looking at the like the Wallet Plus initiative, obviously somebody would have to volunteer for that program, because I don't think it's good to have the team that is actually developing also kind of controlling the program. So the question is, does everybody agree that we need this kind of steering committee by program? And if so, how would be leading those kind of committees or steercos from your perspective? So I discussed that with Jeff too, and we thought we would love to bring this up for discussion here, because we do need to have some authority that's kind of judging if that delivery was actually good. And we both think that it's not up to kind of this full group here to kind of judge each and every piece of every project inside a program.
When you say by program, do you mean for each initiative, like for each one of the proposals, or do you mean that each of the proposals kind of have some linkages, and so we would like say these three are kind of one family, these three are one family type of thing?
Wallet, API, scalability, audit, core, those are
so anything that falls under those.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those programs, it's sort of what Jeff and you and I discussed earlier today. And the issue is, who is got the time to be that, or is it just something that we each of the chains takes the responses back to their technical people on the chain? So, TELOS takes it back to their technical people to look at it, this response. We take it back to our technical people, et cetera, wax and UX. And then there comes back a voting, right? And to decide. I don't think otherwise we have to try to put together 5 steering committees and have people sitting on steering committees waiting to do this, when in reality, there are 5 programs that are running. But as these responses come in my opinion, they can just be brought back to the chain owners, read them, obviously, and the technical staff on the chains read them. And that's how they're going to do their voting. And that's how they're going to decide. It may be decided none of these responses are adequate. The chain comes back and says, we feel these responses are inadequate. But instead of trying to formalize that and pull these technical staff out of each one of these chains and make them formalized and be in a committee, we just make the heads drive it into their technical staff and come back and let the heads represent. And if there needs to be a discussion, then we can form an ad hoc discussion where we say, okay, there's enough here to be discussed. Let's appoint the technical leaders of these ad hoc committees. And it's not clear even in our case per RFP, which of Bucky, Arig, Matt, that we would say they're going to represent this RFP response, or same thing, I'm sure with TELOS or Wax, or, and we can also invite, non-bidding members of the community as well. But you invite Stan, invite, Aaron, et cetera, when we need additional input. But I think forming all this standing working committee at this point is, I just feel it's a little bit of process overkill at this point.
I would agree with that. I think at some point, as we get larger, as there are more programs, as there are more initiatives under those programs running, my concern for that, and I agree with what you just said, I think it's too early, too much, and I'm not even sure we have the resources to be able to do that. But like the people, there's just not enough people, there's not enough time. But yes, if we could keep that, I would say if we can keep that in the back of our minds, and once it's needed, I believe at some point, yes, let's move in that direction.
Lucas, what's your position on that?
I'm sorry, guys. I had to step away, so I missed the last 5 minutes to take another call. So I'll pass on answering that.
Okay, no problem. Guillaume, do you have a point on this?
Yeah, I think kind of like Yves was saying, with regards to how many people can actually be available, it might be the challenge. So I think responsibility falls back to the chains. How they deal with that is up to them. I know on our end, for example, like I I can spare maybe a few more people to help out on part-time basis, looking at say SDK stuff and things like that. But I'm not sure. Like TELOS has been having difficulties attending even the scalability meetings, so it probably will fall again like on the the same people that are on these calls ultimately.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So then we would move that back to the backlog, so we have it in mind at some point of time and discuss that and move on the way that we did. It's just my fear is that currently it's easier to manage. Obviously, Jeff and Ted, you do a lot of those things. So it's easier to manage because not everything here is currently being worked on. So we have a lot of things on the left side. So the moment we got more things over here in that matrix, then it's probably gonna be difficult to follow up with all those tasks, and then we might have to reassess.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, again, the ecosystem gets more vibrant. We're able to hire more people. We've got people we can assign to things like that. It's just everybody, you know, Jeff wears 8 hats as it is. We have everybody doing so many jobs, just assigning them another job. You know, we'll get the work done. We'll put it through the workflow. The chain heads will be responsible for making sure they get a technical analysis. And yeah, I do think we should put it on the backlog because we do hope to get bigger and have enough staff at some point that we could say this person is sitting on each of these steering committees. But I mean, there are more steering committees with the 5 programs than we have engineers in our entire organization, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. Okay. Good. Then one thing that we would like to mention or question is the identification and proposal of developer teams for open tenders. So obviously everybody here has got like a huge network of EOSIO programmers either being on their own or having teams themselves. So the question is, if we would give something to open tender, we wouldn't just post it on a website and say, hey, we got this. If you feel you would be interesting to kind of build this, just approach us. I personally would envision that we outreach to developers we know have the skills to do these kind of things. And I'm wondering if we can kind of build a database or like an Excel file with those teams with their skill sets if we know them. So we can kind of identify them and proactively approach them and say, hey, this is an open tender. We would like to propose this to you. But to be able to do that, we would have to have the understanding of developer teams out there and gather them together in one file so we can approach them.
I think it's a great idea. I think, honestly, the way I've been looking at it, because I agree with exactly what you're saying, is for the most part, like Yves knows the EOS ecosystem the best. And so, you know, he knows which block producers can do work. You know, that's how the blue papers got, you know, written. He reached out to people he knew had those skills, allowed them to bid on it, things like that. I'm sure, you know, Lucas knows the wax ecosystem, and you know, Jesse and you and Douglas know the TELOS. And so once we get to each one of these stages, I think it's, you know, we can either just do it ad hoc then versus trying to have a meeting where everybody throws every name you can think of in a database and then starting to tag them with all the tags that might be future relevant. It might just be easier. Honestly, I know this probably sounds like my last answer, but it might be easier to just do it ad hoc as it comes up and say, all right, Yves, who do you know that would be a reasonable team to bid on P2P networking rewrite? And he can go back and say, well, he's been working in the EOS ecosystem since 2017. He knows all the people. Lucas, same thing. Gnome, you know, you, Kersten, and we pull them together, you know, the Stan, whoever, and then just add them in. Because I think creating that database, if we lean on it too heavily and it's not constantly updated and the tags adjusted, we'll end up missing an obvious candidate had we just thought to, you know, at least, I don't know, maybe it's not as easy to work with everyone as it is to work with Yves, but he never complains when I bug him too much.
story.
Well, he does to the rest of us, but
I complain about Ted to Jeff and about Jeff to Ted. I agree with that. I think so. I agree with what you mentioned, Kersten, at the onset, which is likely when we've got something going up. I think all of us, as a duty, even because we don't have the time to waste, should go out to our respective networks and say, by the way, there's going to be an RFP out. Here's the RFP. I invite you to apply. I think you'd be a good candidate, etc. And then I should also say that it should even be transparent that if any of the teams that we've recommended do apply, we should be very forthwith to the rest of the coalition here to say, by the way, like I vouch for this team, I asked them to apply. It reduces, I think, the likelihood of, I think it increases a little bit of the trust and also reduces the likelihood that we pick teams that may not know or that we may have not worked with, especially at the onset. I would hope that at some point we're going to be in a position where we can't do that anymore, and that a lot of externals that we don't know start applying. That would be, I think, a win. That would be great. At this time in the process, again, I think like getting a database built at this time, I think is a little too early. I think let's build the database as we do these and as we start encouraging people. They want to say, by the way, we sent it up. I reached out to this person. I reached out to this person. That way, we can build it up instead of doing this formally and trying to build it up in a one shot. Let's just build it up organically.
I have a question. It's not clear to me for the public tender how we would communicate. I guess we have the ENF website now, but how will we communicate? Like, hey, we have these RFPs open for bid. I mean, there is a way we could do it with the grant framework. I'm not saying that's the best way, but the question is, how do we put these out there and say, hey, these are now open for bid? Would we put them somewhere and then point at them from the ENF website? How do we like broadcast to the world? If you think you've got great blockchain programmers and you want to take something on here, and I'm wondering, is that even reasonable? Because truthfully, if you really haven't been involved in the EOSIO ecosystem, it's unlikely we would ever pick you to try to take your first shot at building something with zero experience, right? So I'm wondering, does the marketing thing even help? Is that the way it would work? Or really, is it an outreach program where we're all taking from the chain heads are all reaching through their networks and their extended networks to people that they know that have skills in the EOS ecosystem and EOSIO ecosystem, I apologize. And that's how it's brought in. And I just don't know what the current plan was for that.
So that's the meeting that I was referring to tomorrow. That actually, you summarized what I'm hoping we can work through with Zack and Brandon to at least start getting some of these locations to target processes that are going to be as lightweight as we can right now, but still enough to make sure that they have thought through it. And then we also need the same thing from the other chains as well.
So I think that at this stage, anyways, likely the chains themselves are going to be doing it through their own communication channels. I know for EOS, my intention was to do it on our website, to do it within our our current methods of doing outreach. I was also planning on once the Pomelo bounty section is built, then to put them on the Pomelo bounty section. I also thought that as a coalition, we may leverage the Atom, the DLT Detroit Ledger Technologies RFP platform that eventually, and having that out there. But I think at the early onset, we'd just be leveraging as many of our own systems as we have. Like I would imagine that Lucas through Wax will leverage maybe their WPS system that they have. Like just let's put it out there as much as possible. There'd be a duplicate. And then maybe over time we have something a little bit more formal that is the coalition itself. But again, too early to create something, in my opinion. Like just, yeah.
So and I get it, Jeff. If you wouldn't mind, I don't know if I'm free at that time. If you wouldn't mind extending the invitation to me tomorrow as well. Sure. Obviously we've done a really good job of publishing the blue papers. I mean, I think the job that Zack and Brandon have done is outstanding. But would we just put the RFPs directly on the website? Like, here's this RFP, we're looking for it. or we would be making an article, saying, hey, we've got a series of RFPs. Look here, like how, because I mean, it would be, we're going to pump 15, probably we won't pump all of these RFPs through, but we'll probably pump 15 or so RFPs out through this process. And would those each be a separate blog post or something?
Well, currently Brandon does every 2 weeks a communication from the coalition, right? So we'd leverage that. We'd also, I mean, I can only speak from EOS's point of view. We'd likely also then just do our own thing that we do with the ENF tweets. We'd probably publish it on our website, point to that as well, talk about it in the fireside, and basically using the same methods of communication that we're currently leveraging. Just now we've got another item to talk about.
I think a easy way to do it initially, we were doing these blog posts every 2 weeks. So just like we copy and paste the same footer into every post, all of the active RFPs, we would just put them into all of the updates. And then once the RFPs got pulled off the board, we just have to go back and edit the posts and remove them. That's not a great long-term solution, but short-term, it should be fine. And then having a dedicated post also for just all of the RFPs, a page that just lists them all. But as constant reminders, I don't know how long the open season will be that we'll be taking applications once an RFP is published. Do we have an idea of how long we'll be accepting them before we close the round?
Well, we give everybody a week to respond to us to say, we're interested in doing this. And then if they say yes, then they have time to answer questions and actually write the RFP. So, but it's that 1 week window right now that is the most concerning, because if they don't find out about it until after the window closes, then.
All right. So I think what we need is for every RFP have some kind of call to action of how to submit the intent. And then every chain just needs to kind of leverage their socials and their telegrams and their discords to kind of get the word out and then point back to the call to action, wherever that may be. But initially it will just be a post until we can get a page designed for it, like a landing page with all the RFPs. But
it's easy to throw the RFPs. I know this doesn't sound high tech to you guys. It's easy to throw the RFPs in a special directory under, say, EOSIO plus, just all the RFPs in there. And then you just have a blog post saying, these are RFPs that are open. And when they've closed, when it's closed, you pull the RFP out of that directory. And so you're just pointing at the directory, and you don't have to do a lot of updating.
We would just create a category for RFPs. Every blog category could have its own landing page that's basically just an index of posts that are tagged with that category. That'd be pretty simple.
I guess, Ted, are you suggesting that we use the current repo, the GitHub repo, and add a section in there, and so the RFPs would live on GitHub, and then we point people there continuously?
We have two repos. I mean, I'm not saying use the grant framework repo. We could, but that's ENF based. We had a repo we had been using for a while called EOSIO plus, and that would just be a spot that you could stick all the RFPs under there. I'd put a directory called RFP. We stick all the RFPs there. When the RFPs are done, like once the deadline for bidding is passed, we pull the RFP down. So we say, look in the RFP directories for any RFP.
I like that.
It's just a way to do it that stops, instead of trying to use WordPress as a file manager, which it can be done. It's just better done with a plugin. And there's a lot of other, I mean, GitHub is.
Well, we can do both, right?
Files.
So we can let the communications team do the communications about them, but then have them live on GitHub. That way, somebody who doesn't see communications just every couple of days goes onto GitHub and sees what's out for tender.
Right. Yep. And posts can, again, the biweekly posts or whatever, the weekly post can note, hey, there's a new RFP out there, et cetera. It's just one directory that they always live at. And as soon as the deadline passes, we pull it down out of GitHub. So then they know, like, nope, this one's not available anymore.
When we still have the record. So we could also, if, for example, we pull it down for whatever reason and it needs to be brought back up because we end up not accepting a bid or whatever it may be,
it's easy to
all of the information is recorded. It's very good. I like that idea.
Actually, a suggestion to tweak that for some marketing stuff is, instead of pulling it down, we rename the file with like closed, and then on the title screen we put like closed. By leaving it up, eventually it'll start creating the impression that we are giving away a lot of money. You guys need to be coming back here often because you're missing this stuff.
Or we can move it in a different directory called closed or something. But yeah, either of those is fine. Both of those are fine.
Yeah, I like the idea of having that on GitHub. That's a natural point to put it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and developers think in terms of GitHub, right? If they don't understand GitHub, we don't want their bid.
By the way, Lucas, as per usual, is gone, has dropped off.
I just seen it. He dropped. Yeah. Okay. So that's fine. So we move on with that, and then find an information kind of schedule with our social teams to communicate that. And as we talked about budgets, I'll add a point. Do we have like who would actually do like budget reporting at the moment? We haven't spent much yet.
Of the funds that we, I guess by default, that would likely be us at this stage. I mean, unless anybody else wants to donate to anybody, we seem like we are the largest staffed entity of the four. I mean, I would love if somebody else could raise their hands. We are trying to hire more people more faster, but the work is piling up faster than the people that are showing up.
Yeah, whom do you tell that?
Well, I guess by default, actually, no matter what, by default, it's kind of the ENF, because the ENF is the treasury at this point, or the holder of the funds on EOS, and we're the ones that will be doing the contracting. And so by default, it is us. But yes, if you guys want to hire somebody to help Jeff, please feel free. Or hire more. Jeff is getting help. There are two. If somebody's starting next Monday and somebody's starting the Monday after, so Ted and Jeff will be getting some help. But yes, if you know of anybody else, please send them to Ted and Jeff, and we can do some interviews.
Okay, take this as decided.
And we do have, I guess, a payment coming. We will have the final payment or the second payment of the branding agency that should be coming up shortly. So it will be relevant sometime soon. But I wouldn't say that we need to, I wouldn't formalize a report every 2 weeks at this point, because there's no expenditures. Again, too early, too soon, I think.
Yes. Just took that from chat, what Brendan mentioned there. Okay, good. We got that.
The open for assistance line, you can add that in everything.
Sorry?
Yeah, I noticed that in that box that you just created, you wrote an open for assistance. You can add that to everything.
Yes.
By default, yes.
I guess so, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okie doke. Then what I extracted from the Telegram chat was Chintai participation. Well, shout out to them. They saved my back a lot of times with their resources in EOS times. So when I was still very active on EOS, they saved my ass a lot of times. So with their resources. So, but what is the position on this? I mean, we have discussed this various times for other chains. So do we kind of want to open this issue for today, or move it for the next week when we have quorum again?
Well, I think we currently still have quorum, if you are the proxy for Jesse.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, and Guillaume can confirm, we've invited them to next week's scalability call. I guess they were not able to make this week's call. And then we would reassess next week. In terms of membership, full-on membership, my understanding, and I guess my position as well, is that at this stage, I don't believe that the coalition should be looking at or accepting new formal voting members. we should keep our groove going at this stage, because we still really don't have a groove. We've got somewhat of a groove, but bringing the discussion of having a new member, how much would that, what would be essentially, what would be the fee to join, what would be the governance and the voting, I think is too early. People had a chance, and it's only been a month or so that we've started the formal coalition. I would give it more time before we reopen. Having said that, though, having people join in on calls, I mean, this current call is open to everybody. We've got 30 or so something people on this invite, and there were only 8 people, and it really is, the coalition members. So people are free to join this call. We record this, we then publish this. It's apparent by now that either people don't have the capacity, or they would prefer waiting until we can showcase what the coalition is capable of doing over the next period of time, and then they may come back at that stage. The door is open for people to join and participate and join these calls and share their opinions.
Yeah, I second the point on the discussion on membership. So I think we shouldn't spend too much time to discuss that while we have many operational tasks to manage. So Gnome, what's your point on this?
Yeah, so just to confirm, I did invite them for next week's scalability call. I also had invited them to this week's, but maybe on a short notice, like less than a day notice, so they did not attend. I think either way, I believe once, I mean, when you ask them what was the purpose of the desire to attend, they said like just to keep, I guess like up to date with what we're working on, and to be able to adjust in time if we ever publish something or release something. So if that's really what they want, I think they should. But I mean, they probably have enough just watching the recorded videos, so they don't necessarily need to attend. So I would make sure that they are aware that these videos are being published, and that they are very welcome to view them if they have if that's all they require. And if so, I mean, like as a special one-time off, I'm okay having them listen in these calls, but I don't think it's we need to necessarily go out of our way to invite them if they're not going to show up.
So Chintai did join the EOS fireside chat yesterday,
okay.
And which is the weekly Wednesday fireside chat. Chintai is running their own private EOSIO iteration, and they did make changes to the code in order to be compliant for their particular use cases. And so what is difficult, though, is very similarly to other discussions we've had in the past, that because the code is closed source and we don't have access to it, even being able to be cognizant of whether or not anything we're talking about or thinking of doing will affect them is it's impossible, because we don't know. So unless they don't join or unless they don't chime up, really there's not much that we can do on our end.
Yes, I agree. And with that position, I would close that item and move it over to Don. So we discussed that they're welcome to the teams, and hoping for them to join in the discussions. That's great. Okay, I would leave this out for the discussion for early next week when we haven't started the recording. We did kind of come up with an hourly rate that we would like to discuss internally before we kind of publicize this. So this, but since I wouldn't vote for my own rate, we still wait for Jesse. Obviously, Jesse is in alignment with that, but it feels strange. So we do that next time. Then going there, quality assurance, we had that. Testing, we discussed that. I think for the program project reporting, we had this already. So maybe next time, Jeff, if you want to next time show the Excel reports, I think that would be good. Compensation, we discussed that. Everybody agreed that we should do that. Is there any did we have like any update on the discussions on the Scalability Plus? I don't recall if
I was there.
You were there. Okay.
Yeah, I do need to find a better tool, but we came up with a Excel-based Kanban board, to start the process last week, and I'll continue to be at the scalability meetings.
Yeah, if you want, we can create a Miro board, and I can kind of share that link if you want to use that.
Maybe. I was also considering looking at GitHub project.
Yeah.
As an alternative, just because I know everybody uses GitHub, as we talked about earlier. But I'm not decided. I'd really like to get a better feel from the scalability team of, here's some options. What are you guys most comfortable with? And we'll go that direction.
Yeah. Okay.
I think because I was going to say, I think because it's maybe going to be a more technical group, it may make sense to use GitHub, just because if we're coordinating mostly developers to that group, would probably make more sense.
And there's now 2 versions of GitHub projects. There's a beta out, which has got a lot of bells and whistles. The old one is a fine Kanban board and works very well and links up to issues very nicely. And the nice thing is it's just add a URL. Miro is kind of hard to find stuff. You have to know the specific URL, whereas you can navigate in GitHub. You just know it's under EOS Network Foundation, under EOSIO Plus, and boom, there's the project. And it just makes it easy.
Yeah.
It's appropriate for this kind of meetings that we have here, but for the day-to-day development work, it's not suitable. I have to check even if there is now a Miro to GitHub connect. Maybe they developed something like that. I can search
sure
for that.
There is.
Anyway.
I've been playing with the GitHub Actions, and there is to Jira and every other product. So there probably is one to Miro.
Yeah. Okay, so this one here I'm gonna close because we basically migrated all the information that's on there to the other board. So I'll close this one. Brandon, do you have any update for? Oh no, that's the brand development.
I can give an update.
Yeah.
So we were thinking that we may be able to present today. So the group yesterday met. We actually got names. So we've got a short list of, I believe, 6 names, and the group, so that was in attendance, but everybody was there. So Justin, Aaron, Douglas, and I have shortened it to 3. So we actually have 3 names. We will be presenting those 3 names to this group next week. The delay, or I guess the reason for waiting till next week, is because the branding agency is going to go back to the 3 names that we selected out of the list that they gave us to ensure cultural, not relevancy, but to ensure that there's nothing wrong culturally with those names. And that they will also, we gave them a few feedback directions on the visuals and stuff. So they will be able to provide that to us either tomorrow or early next week. And we will be in a position to present the final 3 names to this group next Thursday. And then the idea would be that when we present that, we would go in camera so that everybody on the call would be able to, and I suggest that we start with that because we know that Lucas usually has to drop off. And then we would talk about what the process is afterwards. How do we vote? How do we bring back to the communities? Where do we go with this? But we are, essentially, we do have the 3 names, and we're really excited to share them with everybody.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear fuckos.
It's pretty cool, and they're very I don't want to say much. It's pretty cool. They're very, very different, and the reasonings behind them are like they did an amazing job. It's pretty cool.
I can't believe you said that word, Kersten.
Oh, did I?
He owes himself money now.
Yeah. In terms of in terms of communications, since the biweekly report is kind of slated to go out the day of the next meeting, or the day after, perhaps
it won't be made public right away because we need to secure the domains. We need to talk about which domains we'd want. They've done an initial. So what we did get yesterday was, let's say, the name. We got a very basic scrape of which domains would be accessible, and for those that have costs or kind of an idea of the costs, but we've got multiple iterations of them. We also got a basic Madrid protocol, a trademark, which classes and how many trademarks there are and whether or not they'd be open and such. So what we are presenting should be good and fill all the checkboxes, but still we wouldn't be paying for the trademarks yet. We wouldn't be paying for the domains yet. And so if it does become public, somebody will go and just, get all of them. So we can't make those public at this stage.
So I guess I was just wondering then, if not this coming Thursday or Friday,
the following 2 weeks after
it
should be, yeah, for sure.
That would probably be okay.
I would imagine, depending on, and this I guess is what we need to talk about. We could talk about it now, is what will be the process afterwards. So each chain or each of the 4 coalition members, how will they go about seeking feedback from their community as to which, how will they come about voting? And that would be, I guess, an individual decision by a coalition member as to how they want to do that. Is 2 weeks enough? I have no idea. Up for grabs. I guess it's a tricky one, because if you go about for feedback, then obviously then the information is made public. So you need to secure the domains beforehand. And some of the domains might be cheap, but other domains are quite expensive. And the group as a whole, and that's why I think next week we'll see whether or not the group as a whole gravitates to one of the options. And if they all gravitate to one of the options, and that happens to be an expensive domain that's attached to it, well, do we then just secure the domain and then present it and be okay with wasting those funds? Or it's a discussion that we need to have as a coalition. It's tricky. I don't have an answer for that one. Or do we make the decision as the coalition because that's what we were assigned to do, and then we, or do we dwindle it down to 2? I think it was Zack shared. I think, was it Polygon, Zack, that did something, or was it Polygon or Solana? No, it was Polygon.
Did the rebrand?
Yeah, the one that you shared with me yesterday.
Oh no, Polkadot.
Polkadot, yeah. So they kind of ended on 2, I would imagine, but that was just branding and such. But they landed on 2 and actually got all of their token holders to vote. But now we've got 4 different chains. But the process itself was kind of cool. But they still ended on 2 that they presented to the group. I would imagine secured the trademark, secured the domains for those, and then absorb the cost of which one wasn't chosen, essentially. Maybe that's something we want to do, but that also adds quite a lengthy period of time if we, do this formally for a month or so. And how do we calculate all the tokens from different chains and what does that represent? I guess each one of you would do your own, but I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, the more people you ask, the more answers you get, and like the voting process, even if it's now reduced on TELOS, it's gonna be still 12 days until we have like a proposal voted on by the community. So we're gonna lose significant time on that. Okay.
Oh, it's pretty cool. We're almost there. Almost there.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. I've nothing has been leaked inside TELOS, so I'm really curious.
Awesome.
So yeah, talking about the Scalability Plus blue paper, is there any update when this is going to be totally reviewed? Or is that already here?
I mean, Lucas was volunteered to lead that effort. I'm not sure if he's done what he's done so far. There is again, there's this paper that we started writing at the beginning, but now since Areg was requesting these mathematical proofs for faster finality to be part of the solution, I don't know if it doesn't really make sense to publish it before outside the context of a bid. So I kind of put that on hold for now. And I mean, it depends, because like what we were discussing also was the in a sense it's a bit of a different process here, which may I guess like conclude with a blue paper. But I think the purpose was to kind of come up with the blue paper to get to the RFP, and now we are already kind of doing the RFPs first. I don't know if it's really like a proper way to try to do a blue paper before, or if we just want to focus on the RFPs and get to work. You know?
Yeah,
I would suggest maybe because Lucas isn't here right now, maybe we could start with that as well next week. So we do branding and this item. I believe last week Lucas asked that this item be brought earlier in the discussion. That way he could give an update from his point of view. I don't think there's much we can do today on this item.
Yes. Okay. Then I would like to close the honor original.
Yes, please.
Because
there's
we
nothing.
Did... Okay. No news there. And this one I would close too, because that's also migrated to the other board and to the progress reports on Excel. If you agree, Ted and Jeff.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. So gone through that. Any other updates from anybody?
I don't know if this is what that item is referring to, but yeah, this will be the last meeting before we produce the next update for the biweekly update. So apart from the notes that I already have and the group, and then we'll discuss tomorrow, Jeff may develop some like technical things to announce as part of the report. But if anyone has anything that they say for sure should be included in the weekly or the bi-weekly update, now would be a good time to just blurt it out so I have it down. Otherwise, you can drop it in the chat as well.
I would propose to kind of have at least a paragraph about the RFPs now being worked on, and the kind of the rough process of how we would like to have development teams participate and reach out to us and tender. So if we could have like a paragraph for that would, I think, be nice to kind of pre-warn people that we are actually going to send out RFPs now on a frequent basis, and wait for developers to kind of apply to raise those to us. I think that would be great to start this kind of communication.
Awesome. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, and then probably you could kind of who would they reach out to? I mean, they probably know everybody that is on those calls. Do we have like a central point of contact where we say, if you're interested, please contact whom?
Yeah, in the RFP, there's an email that you apply to, and that is a foundation email. But yeah, there's a method, and especially if we also go the route of placing the RFPs in GitHub as well as in the repo, then they could alternatively, I guess we'd have the record there, but by email is the current process.
Okay.
So
cool.
I just did like a global search of the link from the last coalition report, and it doesn't look like it got shared in TELOS or UX. Wax is only on Discord, so I don't really expect it there. But I'm just wondering what the distribution is for the other chains to make sure the EOSIO coalition reports, like we're putting a lot of time into writing these, but they're not being shared.
They would create a media outreach group. I think we did. Yeah. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, we dropped the links in like the coalition channel when we published them, and I mean, granted, Brandon and I could spam it in your channels, but it would probably be better if the team itself, like the chain itself, would be posting this.
Yeah, I have to take this myself, not to not to have passed it to our marketing, so that for TELOS I have to take that blame for this week.
Same for UX. I added Martin Benedict to deal with our social media to that EOSIO Coalition Media Outreach. So moving forward, I'll instruct them to share anything that gets published there.
Yeah, and I'll talk to our social people so they plan a bi-weekly tweet for this in our media plan, so we don't kind of miss out on that. So that's my fault. Sorry for that.
No problem. And then I'll figure out Wax too. Lucas isn't on the marketing team, but did he invite someone in the group from marketing?
He did, Jesse. And I believe TELOS also invited, and I forget her name.
Crystal?
Was it Crystal?
She's taking care of social.
Jocelyn
is who I was thinking of, but
yeah, okay. Jocelyn is on Good Block. So she's working for Good Block. So I will take the task to forward that to Crystal, and Crystal is taking care of social on TELOS. So I will kind of take that route.
Is Benedict in our channel, Guillaume?
Well, so I forgot. Brandon started a coalition media / outreach channel. So you're not in there, Yves. Jeff is, but that's where we'll start coordinating this and pushing everyone to distribute.
So each chain, has somebody in there, but just make sure that you have the right person in there that can carry that forward. Lucas
is in there, but I don't see what was her name from the coalition group, Yves? Jesse or him. I'm not sure.
That's a her.
Okay, so can I add Crystal to that group?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, Jassy. Sorry, my bad. Not Jesse, Jassy. JASSY.
Okay, this year. Great.
Cool.
So we'll coordinate from that group, and I don't think I'll forget, but Brandon's on it also. We'll both get it. There we go. Added Jassy, we're good.
I agree. Right. Let's not go and spam in each other's channel. That would not be good.
Yeah, I would prefer not to.
Is that it for today? I believe so.
Yep, unless anybody wants to raise anything, then if not, we all gained half an hour of our day.
Thank you, Douglas. If you haven't caught up in the chat, he's the one who said that. So if he listens, then he'll know. All right, guys, take care, everybody.
Have a great evening. Stay healthy.
Thank you, Kersten.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.